we think that the GI tract can tell you so much more about your overall health than just whether or not you have a precancerous polyp or not. So one of the things we're most excited about looking at with our current foundation model and even future versions of the foundation model is, can we detect other diseases that even most expert gastroenterologists don't know how to recognize?
Hello and welcome to the Nebius for Startups podcast. My name is Anu Maheshwari and I lead venture partnerships at Nebius. This is a special series centered around the Nebius Robotics and Physical AI Summit and Awards Competition. This inaugural competition brought over 250 startup applications from over 60 countries around the world. In this series, we're excited to chat to award winners and finalists in the competition. Thank you so much for joining us today on a special edition of the Nebius for Startups podcast. This is special edition for the Nebius Physical AI Summit and Robotics Awards. You were one of the award winners at the awards, so congratulations.
Thank you. Very excited.
Would love to hear your background and the company that you're building.
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Matt Schwartz. I'm the CEO and founder of a startup called Virgo. We've built up the largest data set of GI endoscopy videos in the world. So these are colonoscopy and upper endoscopy videos. And we're now using that data to train AI foundation models that can detect cancers earlier and chronic conditions earlier. So it's super exciting to be a part of this.
What is the founding story behind starting Virgo?
Yeah. So I'm a biomedical engineer by training and spent my career in medical devices and medical technology. Immediately prior to starting Virgo, I was a product manager at Intuitive Surgical, which is the company that makes the Vinci Robotic surgery system. And I was at Intuitive in 2015, 2016, and fell in love with machine learning and computer vision in particular, and realized that there's this huge area of medicine where doctors use video to perform procedures, but nobody was actually capturing that data. And we saw this future coming wave of AI and knew that for it to be successful, it was going to need to be powered by the right data. So we started Virgo with the initial mission of capturing all endoscopic procedure videos so that we could power the future AI breakthroughs. And it's been a really interesting journey. We started the company in 2017 and launched our first product in 2018. We kind of fell our way into this area of gastroenterology, which turns out is an incredibly high volume medical specialty and also really impactful for a number of different cancers and chronic conditions. So it's been a really natural fit for what we're doing.
Congratulations on all the momentum and success so far. How large is the team? Where are you all primarily based?
Yeah, so we're a remote team of 15. We're headquartered out of San Diego, California, which happens to be a major biotech hub and especially a hub for inflammatory bowel disease, which is one of the primary markets that we target. There's a number of major pharma companies there that are focused on IBD. It's about a $35 billion pharma market. And yeah, we're now over 3 million procedures that we've recorded in the Virgo system, which is by far the largest data set of endoscopy videos in the world. And we're growing that about 1 million new procedures per year now.
What's the core insight or innovation that has enabled you to get to the scale of millions of procedures that have been analyzed?
Yeah. I think really the key insight is that healthcare is a very complex industry. Got regulatory considerations, patient data privacy considerations, and then I think the most unique thing about healthcare is that the incentive structures are incredibly complicated. We were coming to this space where we saw there's this amazingly valuable data asset, endoscopy videos. It's a rare instance where you get to look inside of patients and see really unique anatomy, and nobody was capturing that data. So we kind of looked at ourselves and said, well, why is no one capturing it? And it was this confluence of the technology wasn't available, There was no incentive to be capturing it, and solving those regulatory and technical hurdles was not going to be easy. But we just believed passionately enough that if we could solve those challenges and actually create some new incentives, we could get people recording. So in the early days, a lot of it was about building a technology platform that was easy enough for doctors to use. And that meant building hardware and software that was plug and play and automated. I'd seen in my prior work as a product manager that if you asked a doctor or their clinical team to be responsible for recording procedure videos, they've got a million and one things that they're trying to deal with when a patient's on the table. The last thing they want to do is change their workflow to kind of be an IT person for a moment. And so we really designed the core video capture and management solution around user experience and making as much of the process automated as possible. So now we install our equipment. It's HIPAA compliant, it's SOC 2 compliant, it's GDPR compliant. It's even applying for something called 21 CFR Part 11 for clinical trials. And when we set it up, it just works out of the box. Doctors go about their normal day, and these procedures get recorded and compressed and encrypted, and then securely transferred to our cloud storage in the background. So yeah, I think it's that confluence of making it easy enough for people to adopt, and then over time layering in these benefits that actually create incentive where there wasn't incentive previously.
Yeah. It's a pretty interesting insight that you had to change the incentives and behaviors, and this is often a common theme in the healthcare and life sciences world where so much of the economic power is held by insurance and reimbursements. We were talking about this a little bit yesterday. Tell me more about how you've gone about working within this reimbursement, insurance, healthcare provider world to make these incentives work for all of the participants.
Yeah, it's definitely something that has evolved over the years, and now as we built up a critical mass of data and can actually build some unique AI tools, we're able to layer on more of those incentives. In the early days, it was finding ways to help academic systems do better research by using this video data or incorporate video as a training tool for fellows. So kind of just finding little niches where we could apply the video data we're capturing. Now that there's more AI involved, we've really focused on other aspects of the healthcare ecosystem. And one of our big customer bases has been pharmaceutical companies, where, as it turns out, I mentioned inflammatory bowel disease is this massive pharmaceutical market. It's also an area where, even though we spend a lot of money on these drugs, they don't actually work all that well for patients. Something like 50% of patients, they fail their first line treatment when they've got ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. And so there's still a ton of investment in clinical trials and trying to develop new drugs, where it turns out the videos we capture are a really critical data asset. And so we've been able to help support now 9 different phase 2 through phase 4 IBD clinical trials with a combination of data capture and patient recruitment. The more patients you can find faster for a trial, the faster the trial gets done, and you can get a drug to market faster. Now, with some of our latest advances, we're actually looking at helping to power precision medicine in inflammatory bowel disease trials using the AI we built.
That's a great segue into talking about AI. As part of the award that you won, you received compute credits on Nebius. I'm curious to learn about how are you building the AI now, and what is in this next phase of innovation that you're.
So earlier this year, we introduced an AI foundation model for endoscopic imaging that we call EndoDINO. To develop that model, we used a subset of our data, a little over 130,000 endoscopy videos. It's over 3.5 billion frames of endoscopy. Even though it's just a small subset of our overall data, it's by far the largest data set of its kind reported in the literature. And with that data, we trained a self-supervised model that is now able to achieve state of the art in all sorts of different GI tasks. So it can recognize anatomy, it can classify different diseases, it can even score disease severity. And the thing we're most excited about and most proud about is that we recently presented some data in collaboration with the Cleveland Clinic where we showed that we can take the baseline colonoscopy video from a patient with ulcerative colitis and process it through our EndoDINO model, and then actually predict patients' likelihood of responding in either the placebo arm or the treatment arm of a drug trial. And this is really the first time that's been doable and has massive implications for clinical trial design and precision medicine. Uh, but we just view that as phase one. This is kind of like early signal that what we're doing with the foundation model works. Now we want to see how can we scale that up. We have, instead of just 130,000 videos, we now have 3 million videos to work with. We have some ideas about new AI architectures and training techniques that we can employ. And so that's what we plan to do with the credits is really put them toward exploration in building version 2 and beyond of our EndoDINO foundation model.
Along this journey of building up the company so far, was there a particular moment where you thought, wow, this is really going to work? We're going to make an impact for patients where they are having issues that are part of a kind of where endonology can be relevant.
Yeah. Um, I'd say there've been lots of little signs along the way. One of the things that's been most inspiring is actually seeing how physicians come up with new ways to use endoscopy video that we hadn't really thought of before. Um, we have doctors that will actually share endoscopy videos directly with their patients. So a doctor might do a colonoscopy, they find a polyp and remove it. In the past, the doctor would kind of just tell the patient and they might show them a picture of here's what the polyp looked like. Now we have doctors that actually show the patient, here's me removing your polyp, and you can rest assured you can actually see that I took the whole polyp out. So that's been fascinating. The From an AI perspective, we're not necessarily like a fundamental AI research lab. A lot of what we do is try to stay up to date on the latest open source research that's being put out there and figuring out how we can apply it to our specific domain and our data set. We we for a long time been really interested in and big believers in self-supervised or unsupervised learning techniques, somewhat out of necessity, just because we have so much video data and it's not really economically viable for us to get that data labeled. And so there have been some major breakthroughs in self-supervised computer vision. A lot of it coming out of Meta's Fair Lab. And so when we saw is like Dino V2 when that was first announced, that was a huge signal to us that people are starting to really crack the code on self-supervised machine learning for computer vision. Um, and that just gave us a lot of confidence that we should try to apply that in endoscopy. And now we're seeing the earliest signals that there's a lot more signal in endoscopy data than even what the most expert doctors can see. And we feel like it's our job to build the AI to pull that signal out of the data.
Yeah, it's interesting that necessity and by being a startup has kind of required looking out and seeing what opportunities there are in open source or in the latest advancements. Are there other constraints that you've worked through as well, or you foresee where it's going to require more creativity and resourcefulness?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes back to that incentive structure question in healthcare. We're very motivated as a team and by our mission to serve the best interests of patients and try to actually advance clinical care. Unfortunately, the healthcare system doesn't always reward that economically, and so you have to figure out, how do you work within the system but also improve patient care. Um, I think I think we're in a really unique position with the data that we have and this data network to unlock some opportunities in opportunistic screening. today the primary reason a patient gets a colonoscopy is to screen for colorectal cancer. You turn 45 and you're recommended to get screened for colorectal cancer. Um, but as I mentioned before, endoscopy is this rare opportunity to look inside the patient. It's your GI tract is a huge set of organs. They're heavily vascularized and innervated, and we think that the GI tract can tell you so much more about your overall health than just whether or not you have a precancerous polyp or not. And so one of the things we're most excited about looking at with our current foundation model and even future versions of the foundation model is, can we detect other diseases that even the most expert gastroenterologists don't know how to recognize. A couple of those diseases that we're really interested in are chronic kidney disease, uh, uh, liver disease, cardiovascular disease. And I think there's good scientific reason why there should be some signal available. But again, it's our job to build the AI to see if we can detect those things that are undetectable to the human eye.
This is a really interesting concept that there might be biomarkers in GI tracts that could be relevant to many more disease and condition areas. In terms of the science, what are you seeing so far, and how can you combine that with the AI tooling and technology that you're building?
Yeah. So we've been really inspired by a lot of computer vision work and foundation modeling work that's taking place in ophthalmology. So there have been some great groups. I think some of the early work took place at Stanford and Google. And then there's a great research group over in London that produced an AI foundation model for retinal images. They take a picture of the back of your eye and they can start to actually predict things that a human expert doesn't know how to predict. And some of them are maybe a little bit more obvious. You can predict whether a patient's a smoker or not, whether they have diabetic retinopathy or not. But the group in London, the thing that really opened our eyes to this was they were starting to predict systemic disease risk. So looking at 5-year stroke risk or 5-year heart attack risk. And I think if you were to ask an ophthalmologist how to predict that risk from the image of someone's retina, they'd have really no idea where to start. But AI can pick up on that signal, and um, we think that that alone is a nice proof of concept that we should be able to do something similar in the GI tract. And if anything, a colonoscopy video or upper endoscopy video, there's so much more anatomy that you're viewing and just so much more data to work from that we anticipate there will be some signal there. When it gets to the pure science, there is interesting correlation between, say, chronic kidney disease and upper GI tract findings. I don't think it's very well explained right now, but that there's a known correlation. Um, in liver disease, if you have bad enough liver disease, you start to get what's called portal vein hypertension. It's basically like blood flow backing up from your liver. What that can turn into is a bleeding vein that shows up in your esophagus. Now, if it shows up as bleeding in your esophagus, by that point, it's pretty far progressed. Uh, but our hypothesis here is that with AI, we can maybe detect earlier signals of that would go undetected to the human eye.
And is the technology that you've built more focused on GI? Can the same video capture technology be used in other parts of the body, or would you have to adapt the architecture or the way you build those motion or video capture?
Yeah. So we definitely designed the platform to be pretty generalizable. We got our start in gastroenterology somewhat out of necessity. We were getting pulled into the field by a bunch of leading gastroenterologists that were really interested. It also turns out GI is much higher volume than any other surgical specialty. There's over 25 million GI endoscopies done in the US each year. That said, we have started to get back into some of these other specialties. So About 95% of our procedures are coming from gastroenterology. The remaining 5%, we're capturing a good amount of bronchoscopy, which is actually endoscopy into the lungs. And then we started to get into the surgical space as well, capturing laparoscopic surgery and even robotic surgery, which has been really fun getting kind of back to my roots and capturing some Da Vinci robotic surgery procedure videos.
Very cool.
Yeah.
In terms of major milestones that have occurred recently, what are you most proud of amongst the team?
I think, definitely was a huge milestone to actually announce this foundation model is kind of the culmination of why we started the company. It was to capture this data and power real AI breakthroughs in the space. So when we announced the model earlier this year, that was a huge win for the team. But then actually translating that into uh, presentation of data at a major GI conference in collaboration with the Cleveland Clinic, showing that we could actually detect things in clinical trial data that humans couldn't detect. Um, it was just incredibly rewarding for the entire team. This is like the culmination of why we started the company, and to be able to actually show that in good data. Um, I think it proved it to ourselves. It's also really opened the eyes of the industry, and we're now um, starting to actually license our foundation model to leading pharmaceutical companies so that they can take this model and build on top of it.
That's a really interesting additional go-to-market or distribution pathway. So far we talked a little bit more about there's the provider, payer, reimbursement channel. This sounds like a completely new channel of selling into pharmaceuticals or biotech companies directly. Where are you in that exploration?
Yeah. We've been pretty fortunate to have worked with a lot of the leading pharma companies in the IBD space in supporting their clinical trials, and so we built up all these great relationships with like the clinical trial operations teams, for example. As it turns out, most of these pharma companies they have incredible data science and computer vision teams as well that we had somewhat tangentially gotten to know. But this product in the foundation model is really built for those data science computer vision teams. And so we now have our first projects just getting up and running with a number of leading pharma companies. And what I think is encouraging there is those teams are really well resourced. They've got brilliant people. The thing that they need, I think, to do incredible work is this combination of data and AI tooling. If you're a leading pharma company, you've got data coming from your clinical trials that even if you've got a large portfolio of IBD clinical trials, you maybe only have a few thousand patients in your data set. And what our foundation model allows us to do is take data from hundreds of thousands, millions of patients, and compress it into a single artifact and actually deliver that to a data science team at a leading pharma company to accelerate their work.
Would this be applicable across different regions of the world? I'm curious so far, I believe it's been a very US centric business. Is there a way to expand internationally, or are there certain barriers or regulations that may make that harder
Yeah,
in this
so
space?
we've definitely been primarily focused on the US market. We especially got our start in large academic medical centers here. And so we're in the majority of the top academic GI programs here in the States. We do have a small footprint in the EU and in Canada. There are definitely regulatory and data privacy considerations, and so for us, one of the things that's most important is to make sure when we go into a new market that we establish our cloud infrastructure so it's dedicated for that specific market. So a lot of the AI work that we've done to date has really focused on the U.S. market, but from a data capture perspective, we're excited about finding new geographies that we can enter, and a lot of that is done in strategic partnerships, say with a pharma company that wants to run a trial in specific regions. We'll kind of spin up a geographic instance to support that.
Yeah. And perhaps there's an opportunity for us to collaborate on this,
Yeah,
given
absolutely. Yeah.
we have regions certainly in Europe, in addition to the US. And
I think especially from the AI side,
yeah,
like I said, just to keep things simple for now, we've done a lot of the AI work in the US, but over time, I think it'll become a necessity to do inferencing internationally and maybe even train geographic specific models.
in terms of the AI development, you've said that it wasn't the core focus of the team for much of the development of the business, but as it now becomes a critical component, are you actively looking to grow the AI team, and how do you think about this interplay, and what kind of domain expertise you want? Do you want folks that have AI expertise and the scientific background, or is it okay and possible to compartmentalize and sort of segment out the teams?
Yeah. There's a pretty short list of AI researchers that have gone deep into endoscopy and GI endoscopy and inflammatory bowel disease specifically. And so we're definitely interested in expanding the team. We're also very open to partnership and collaboration. Um, our core competency is in data capture and understanding the clinical needs and the clinical problems. We don't necessarily view ourselves as a core AI research lab. That said, we have built up a lot of understanding about what I think is a very interesting open problem in AI, and that's long video understanding. A lot of computer vision work in the past has focused on still images to start with, and only recently folks are starting to get into more video based modeling. But if you look in even the most recent literature, uh, long video in the AI world is often looked at as a video clip that may be 2 seconds to 16 seconds long. That's considered long. For us, a GI endoscopic procedure can range from 5 minutes to 5 hours. And I think the big open problem is how do you go from a 5 hour procedure into a single AI embedding. Um, and we've got a lot of ideas on how to best tackle that. But if anyone out there listening has an interest in video AI modeling, we'd love to connect and see if there's an opportunity to work together.
Absolutely. And then along this journey, what have been the hardest parts, or things you've been surprised by, what maybe took longer or was more of a challenge to solve?
It's funny looking back. We started the company in 2017. We launched the video capture product in 2018, and I mean back then we were trying to convince hospitals to allow us to store their data in the cloud. And the cloud was like a foreign word to a lot of hospitals and health systems. And so a lot of what we did in the earliest days was honestly just educate hospitals about what the cloud is, why in a lot of ways, in a lot of cases, it's actually more secure for storing their data. Um, and we slowly started to turn that tide. I mean, get to the point now we're actually supporting some work at the VA system who is actually leaning into cloud storage, cloud solutions. Um, so that initial journey was definitely a long, hard road. I often joke with people that one of the reasons I'm bald is because we were selling into hospitals and health systems. Um, but the flip side benefit of that is all that hard work has now produced a large data moat, and is what allows us to do the fun AI work today. One of the other biggest challenges was there was a global pandemic that happened kind of right as we were starting to hit our stride. We look at our charts for number of procedures recorded on a daily basis, and there's a day, I want to say like March 13th of 2020, that the world was starting to shut down. The three major gastroenterology societies sent out a notice to all their members and basically said, we're suggesting you cancel all non-emergent procedures. And that day, we see our chart basically drop to zero. And uh, it's it is an incredibly challenging time for the world, for our company. looking back, you know, it, I'm really proud of the way our team kind of buckled down and came together. We figured out ways that we could just support the health systems that we were working with in kind of a low touch, let us do anything we can to support you sort of way. And in hindsight, it was super rewarding to just come out of that on the other side and get back to business and actually grow the company from there.
Yeah. And as you take this momentum now, since the pandemic subsided and really growing the number of procedures that you're seeing, as well as adding in this AI accelerant, what are you most optimistic about? What are you most excited by in the coming years on your roadmap?
Yeah. The it's really it all comes back to this foundation model that I think is giving us a number of different opportunities. And um, we have a pilot going on right now with one of the largest GI practices in the country. And what we're working to show is that they can actually use our foundation model as a starting point to build their own AI application for the automatic detection, classification, and sizing of polyps. And there are industry offerings right now for automatic polyp detection, but we're pretty interested in this different paradigm where instead of an industry player building a start to finish AI application and then delivering that to a health system, what if our foundation model can actually lower the barrier of what it takes to build an AI application such that a GI practice can actually train their own model on their own data for their specific patient population, customize it to their liking. And we think in a lot of ways this can accelerate the adoption of AI in clinical practice, not just something that ends up in a research paper, but something that actually gets used by doctors on everyday patients. So we're pretty excited about that. We're hoping to have some early results, if not by the end of the year, early next year, and look forward to sharing that with the world.
Super exciting. To cap it off, we've been asking this question to all of the podcast guests. Please fill this sentence in for me. We will know we succeeded when.
Uh, we'll know we've succeeded when the paradigm has truly shifted and the majority of endoscopic procedure videos are being recorded by default as the standard of care. We're probably looking at something like recording 4 or 5% of all GI endoscopies in the US right now. And if we can get that over 50%, I think what that will signal is not just that we've kind of won and we're getting these procedures recorded, but that the industry and the healthcare ecosystem at large recognizes that there's power and value in this data, and we can't just let it go to waste. We've got to be capturing it so that we can uh, apply AI to it and do all sorts of interesting things that are better for patients.
Thank you. That would be an incredibly positive outlook.
Can't wait. We're
Yeah.
getting there.
Thanks for joining us, Matt.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.